Here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts. Ever wonder what bridges the gap between your favorite film genres, subgenres, and movements? CinemaScope is here to explore these connections, taking you on a thrilling odyssey through the ever-evolving art of cinema. I'm your host, Andy Nelson, and in each episode, we embark on a deep dive into the forces that sculpt the world of film. From the styles you know and love, like heist films or the French New Wave, to the ones you may not be as familiar with, like Turkish Yeşilçam or Brazilian Nordwesterns, my expert guests and I unravel the complex tapestry of storytelling, style, and innovation that defines the world of film as we unpack the myriad catalysts of change that shape these diverse styles. Whether you're a student of film, a creative professional, or simply a devoted movie enthusiast, CinemaScope is your gateway to a richer, more immersive film experience. Don't just watch movies, understand them, appreciate them, and revel in their artistry with CinemaScope. Subscribe today.
Coming up on The Devil's Details, Animorphs by Dante Alighieri. Dante's Inferno, Part 7. Good morning, Star Lovelies, and welcome to another episode of The Devil's Details, a show where we dig up, decipher, dissect, and deconstruct the many forms of the devil. One of my names is Lester Ryan Clark.
And I sometimes go by Keenan Diaz.
And we're just two lost souls hitchhiking down the highway to hell. And just a reminder, today's episode was originally recorded as bonus content for our first podcast, The Exorcist Minute, so I think we should hand it over. Take it away, past Lester and Keenan. So it's as we continue our descent into hell with Dante the Rump Alighieri. And
Big Bottom Dump Truck Allighieri.
You know what they say, fat-bottomed Italian poets help make the world go round. And Virgil, I'm more famous in Dante's poem. Virgil, right?
Yeah,
And Virgil, I was born before last names, Virgilson. Okay, folks, if you'll remember, last time we encountered a, what's the collective term for psychics?
Oh, yes, like a scam of psychics?
A scam of psychics, right? I was thinking like a premonition of psychics, maybe, right?
You're too kind to that.
I know, yeah, right? And their heads were turned all the way around, so they couldn't see even a few feet ahead of them. Great contrapasso right there. After this, we did the mash.
We did the monster mash.
It was a Malabolgia smash. We met a bunch, a legion of silly devils with funny names. These are different from the devils we have seen previously. They march to a different tune, you might say, if you know what I'm saying. And they wanted to poke Dante in the butt, but not in the good way.
Depending on who you are in the situation.
Yeah.
They have a blast doing it.
Yeah, they do, right? But they got pitched into some pitch, and our boys made a running, sliding jump into the next Malabolge, where we got these people dressed like monks of Cologne, and they all smell really sexy, but they're forced to walk in gilded cloaks lined with lead. We climb out of that Malabolge.
I'm going to miss those devils, though.
I know, right? Like they were, yeah. Oh. Hey, maybe they'll show up again. We never know. We haven't finished this thing yet.
We never know.
Yeah.
We've read it.
Yes, we have read the entirety of Dante's Inferno before recording. Yes, you're absolutely right. Co-host Keenan, yes. Yeah. Okay.
It'd be great if they show up in Paradiso. It's like, we're here. We got rumps galore.
It's like just a special pass. It's just, it's like
right. God can't stay mad at you.
Yeah. Oh, they're just so, they're just so lovable. They're just so impish, because they're imps,
Because they're imps, right?
Yeah. So after this, we descended into the pit of thieves, where we met a bunch of people being all bit up by snakes, and we meet specifically Vanni Fucci, who begins to tell his tale, even as the snakes continue to bite him, and he bursts into flame, falls into ash, and then pops back up again to continue.
Yeah, and another thing,
yeah. And that's where we left off, was in this circle of thieves being menaced by these snakes and bursting into flame and crumbling into ash.
Yeah, and our break in cantos is in the middle of Vanni Fucci's sort of tirade. So
Yeah.
even Dante, the author, is like, "Well, we need to take a break here. You're just going on and on."
What is the SpongeBob thing? It's like 12 hours later,
Exactly.
and Vanni Fucci still got to say, another. Right? Yeah. Okay, so now Canto 25. Malebolgia 7, Circle 8, right? So let's break down this canto, right? This one's got a lot of action and comparatively little dialogue. This is a continuation of our previous canto. We got Vanni Fucci, and he is shouting blasphemies at God, right? Remember,
Right.
this is after he tells his story about stealing the sacred items from the church, right? You know, like Jean Valjean. In Phantom of the Opera. And so now he's sort of like, and I'll do it again, too.
Yeah, the text I see, just because I happen to have it right here. So this is the translation I have. At the conclusion of his words, the thief lifted his hands aloft with both the figs, which I think is the Italian hands.
Oh, yeah, they do look like figs. I'm
Yeah.
doing them right now, folks.
So he lifts his hands. So he lifted his hands aloft with both of the figs, right? Crying, "Take that, God, for at thee I aim them." At his own, he aims these figs at God.
Wow. There we go. Yeah. And much like our boy Capaneus, this sore loser is immediately punished. Here with a swarm of snakes, a gaggle of snakes. What's the collective of snakes?
I would say a Slytherin or
a Slytherin, yeah.
A tongue lashing.
A tongue lashing of snakes, right? I was thinking like a Medusa of snakes or a Gorgon of snakes or something like that.
A Medusa, yeah.
Yeah. So this guy gets attacked by a bunch of snakes and he runs off. I love that visual. It's like as Father Thomas Esposito puts it, proud and pathetically angry. Okay, so it's not even like it's like
yeah, he's pouting.
Yeah,
that he lost. Yeah,
I'll get you next time.
God. Yeah, at least Capaneus is blown to smithereens and we don't have to see him slinking away.
Right. He's just up in that like desert with the snow falling, fire and just pouting,
Right.
just like. No, I don't even feel it. It doesn't hurt at all. Yeah. But yeah, it's like so again, we have this sinner who's living his contrapasso, hashtag living my best contrapasso, and he's not learning anything. Nobody seems to be learning anything in Dante's hell. Keenan, what if in Dante's version, as soon as you learn, you can like move on? But that's the irony, is that they're down here because they will never learn. I mean, like this is obviously not, the first mention of like eternal damnation. But remember, there was a time when the ancient Hebrews believed that specifically the place called Gehenna was a temporary place for purification and cleansing and refinement. And I guess sort of like Catholics see purgatory, right? You're purged of your sins. And I wish I knew the timeline for this, right? It probably doesn't match up. But the fact that we are continually seeing only sinners who are refusing to learn sort of turns it into Schrödinger's sinner, like meaning that we can't say for certain that learning wouldn't help them in some way because no one has yet. What do you think?
Right. Yeah. Because Virgil's not going to take him. Oh, I guess Virgil could do anything because Dante's writing him because he's a fictional character.
Right.
But Virgil's not going to be like, oh, and let me take you through this journey of one of these sinners learning and getting sent from hell to purgatory and working his way up.
Right.
Yeah. But I've been thinking a lot about that. So, I often don't remember anything that we record until I listen to it on the show and like hear Lester's edited version of it. I go, oh yeah. But we were talking about arcs and how like we were sort of discovering this on air a little bit. Like, oh yeah, arc isn't really a thing at this time, like character arc, right? Like Shakespeare has them,
right?
But ancient Greek plays don't necessarily have them, right? Or like if it's an ancient Greek comedy, it's not really that they learn anything. It's kind of that like society is like, oh, we accept you, right? Or you've done a task, so then you win. But it's not like people have changed really,
right?
But I was thinking about that more because there are arcs in the Bible, of course, right? So there is St. Paul, like we see him having his great arc and his great change, which does not involve him changing his name, just so we don't get any letters. So like that's the thing, is that people say like he was Saul and then he became Paul when he converted, which isn't true. He had two names.
Right. Yeah.
Like you're Lester, you're also Les sometimes.
Yep.
You're Lester Jr. or Lester the Third, depending.
Right. You could say that less is more than he puts out there sometimes. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
If people were like, oh, here on this social media it says Lester Ryan Clark, and this other one it says Lester Clark, then that must have been when he converted to Christianity. He changed his name. It mattered so much.
Spread the good news.
Spread the good news. Right at this Starbucks when he went by Lester instead of Les.
Careful listeners will be able to pinpoint way back. I was introducing myself as like, my name is Lester Clark, and then at some point I just decided to say Lester Ryan Clark. And
there wasn't some great big epiphany. You didn't become right-handed instead of left-handed.
No. I was just like, I'm gonna use my my full name. Well, no, actually, I'm gonna use more of my full name. By the end of this show, will be it's like I've been Lester Ryan Michael Clark the third. I've been. I'll drop a. I was like, I've been Dr. Lester Ryan Michael Clark.
Now that's some arc, when you put a doctor. But yeah, when we were kids, like in high school and college, we used to have to call, and then. So kids today, just imagine this: when you wanted to get hold of your friend, you'd have to call their parents at their house, which is terrible. So you'd go, "Hi, is Lester there?" And they would go, "Which Lester?" Right. You go, "Lester Jr." And they would go, "Which Lester Jr.?" You're Lester Jr. Yeah. So eventually they learn your voice, and they're like, "Okay, this is
yeah."
No,
I've been on the phone with somebody who's been who thinks they're talking to my dad for an embarrassingly long time, and vice versa. Yeah.
Did you ever call your dad and get confused?
Did I ever call my dad?
Yeah, I'd be like, wait, who's this? This is Lester. No, I'm Lester.
Hang on. I got a phone call from myself. What? There's a Scrooge and Marley situation going on? What's going on? Yeah.
Anyways, sorry. What were we talking about?
Dante.
Were we? But there are arcs, character arcs in the Old Testament and the New Testament.
Yes.
So that was just interesting to me as I've thought about this since listening to our episode when we were talking about the lack of arcs in a lot of our literature. Like eventually people are like, oh yeah, like because for them the Bible is history, right? So then eventually they're like, oh yeah, like in history. Right. People change as opposed to like character being immutable, right?
Yeah. Like the Bible is such a weird amalgamation of like history and narrative and historical narrative,
right?
And depending on what you want to take as gospel, you're gonna have a very different time with it. I think.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, Paul existed, and he was a Jew who became a Christian. Like that's real. That's
wrote a lot of letters.
I hope that's not. Yeah, he wrote a lot of epistles. Right. Yeah, I hope that's not controversial. like Paul was a real person, and he really had these changes. So so like there is arc there. Now I can't think of a single other character in the Bible.
Name a woman.
What? Name a woman. There's a great.
It's International Bible Day. Name a character in the Bible. Every day is International Bible Day.
There's a great Billy Eichner where he's interviewing with his cameraman, and he's like, "Hey, who do you like better, me or Seth Rogen?" Because they were going to be in The Lion King together as Timon and Pumbaa.
Okay.
And the lady's like, "Oh, I love you. He's terrible. He's not funny at all." I was like, "Well, great. Here we have Seth Rogen," and he takes down the camera. He's like, "Hey."
See, that's why I only have nice things to say about people that I can't see in front of me.
Right, exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, eventually I'll think of another biblical character. But,
sure.
But there you go. Paul, who was also Saul.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Ramesses.
He's in the Bible.
Yeah, he is.
He doesn't change.
No.
Well, he gets. Yeah.
He famously doesn't change.
Peter. Peter's in the Bible, and Peter changes.
Yes, he does.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anyways,
I mean, Adam and Eve, they go through a pretty big change.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's very true.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. So, anyways, I think that's very interesting thinking about like how how it took a while, right?
Yeah.
Hundreds of years, it seems. I mean, I'm sure that there are exceptions, but where
Mm-hmm.
the norm in literature became arc, where now
Right.
if you don't have arc, it's kind of seen as like, oh, you're making a really bold choice by having a character who doesn't go through any change whatsoever.
Yeah, yeah. And that's, that's for characters, for people. I'm wondering, and I know, like, I'm sure we already covered it in
Mm-hmm.
one of these History of the Devils, but like when and who, like who was the person and when did it happen when we established it's like, okay, hell is forever and there's no getting out of it. Because like I really am wondering, it's like, is this a case of Dante making a point of like, it's like, well, these people could get out, but they are so bad. This is the proof of how bad they are that they're still here.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, because him on the outside is like, oh, this is very simple. You should just stop being a sodomite or whatever. Right. You just stop being a blasphemer. Yeah. Like it's very clear. It's easy for me. Mm-hmm, look at all the non-blasphemes I'm doing.
Right. I'm not a racist. I'm not a right. I'm not a murderer. I'm not. Look at all the crimes that I haven't committed. Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so the Bible. Yes. Okay. So back to Vanni Fucci. So well, actually no, because he runs off screaming, right?
Right.
And we are once again met with a horseman.
Yay!
Yay! Right. This is another centaur. This is Cacus or Cacus. I'm gonna say Cacus because I like that.
Yeah, I like that better.
Cacus. Yeah. And we know this because Virgil loudly whispers to Dante, "That's Cacus." Just like he did with Nessus, right?
Right.
And Cacus is famous for stealing a whole herd of cattle and then being clubbed to death by Hercules. Man, Hercules figures a lot in the Inferno. Everyone's got a beef with Hercules.
Yeah, he must have been. I mean, I think he was. Just
Everyone's got
a
beef with Hercules because he stole cattle.
Hercules stole cattle?
No, Cacus stole cattle.
Oh, that's Cacus. He stole from Hercules. Yeah, it does seem like sorry, I was responding to your actual astute literary point.
Okay, and not my stupid pun. Okay.
Oh, our fans love your stupid puns. Because now they're like because we have our listener group, right? Compelling Conversation on Facebook, and they'll send people will send things in. They'll send things about the movie The Exorcist. They'll send things about the devil or the Bible or some of the actors or whatever. And sometimes just like, I just saw this stupid pun and thought of you all. So here's a pun about nothing at all. But
Keenan, I appreciate you taking the hit with me. But I saw that post too, and it was specifically, I saw this stupid pun and I thought of you, Lester.
Yes, that's true.
I love how you very generously
I was going to say the story right, and then I thought that sounded really mean. So, but yeah, we've got Hercules a lot, and like people that Hercules has vanquished. It's very interesting. But he must have been like, this is proof, I guess, of like how popular he would have been. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure what makes him so popular to Catholics in the 1300s. But he's really there. I mean, yeah.
It's very interesting how Dante kind of picks and chooses with these. Like again, a lot of Greek stuff in his hell.
Right.
But then we have like we're going to see people being punished for going up against the Greek heroes. But it's like, Dante, the Greek heroes are also like you have Alexander the Great in a boiling river of blood too. Right. So like, which is it, Yeah.
And we're going to see a very surprising...
Or you have Capaneus insulting Jove.
Right. And then we're saying, Jove is God, which is quite non-scriptural, I would say. Yeah.
And then you have Caesar as one of the noble... I know he's Roman, but like you have Caesar as one of the noble pagans, but then down below, like, we haven't met him yet, but we got Cassius and Brutus,
Right. And we're gonna see one of the Greek heroes in here, which is quite surprising when I first saw that. So but we really like Hercules. He put the glad in Gladiator.
Okay, folks, that was not me.
Yeah, his daring deeds are great theater. Hercules.
Yeah.
Is he bold?
Keenan, I think you mean Hercules.
Honey, you mean Hercules. Yeah, that lady is based on Dante Alighieri. Like, honey, you mean Hercules.
Oh my God. I got something to say about them once we get to if we get to Paradise Lost.
All right.
Because it's basically like a retelling of of an epic poem, and like I imagine the the muses are just talking about how great the devil is and how sexy he is.
He's got abs,
those wings.
As I understand it. Yeah, he's got a lot of abs, right?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, never skips leg day. But yeah, so okay, so we get back to Cacus, right? Cacus, right? So he has Cacus has snakes all up and down his back, right? And also a little dragon riding him, and blowing fire onto the back of his neck, right? But like everyone else, Cacus doesn't seem to notice this, but instead he is running, galloping around and shouting for the guy who just ran away, Vanni Fucci, right? Calling out, "Where is the unripe sinner?" Right? Right? So, like all he's trying to do is punish. So Keenan, Cacus works here, right?
Right. I think all the centaurs do, right?
Okay, all right. So anybody who's not human, basically.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, and so Cacus is like his job is to punish, but he's also being punished.
Yeah, I thought that was weird. I mean, so what's his punishment? Getting snakes and dragons on him, looking all badass.
Right. Well, I imagine it hurts,
but he just walks around like one of those action heroes, just like not noticing.
Right.
Yeah. He's like bleeding in really sexy ways. Like
I imagine
scar under his eyes.
Yeah. Right. The pain makes him even more angry. Yeah.
Right.
But he's just all about like punishing Vanni Fucci.
Right.
But yeah, like what's like Nessus Nessus back. Nessus didn't have to go through any punishment. He just, he was having a good old time like shooting sinners in the boiling river of blood. He didn't have no snakes on him.
That's why I think Cacus is not being punished. I think he's just enjoying. I think
it's a fashion statement.
He gets to have a dragon on his back, and then every once in a while the dragon gets to go and blow some fire on him.
Yeah. I imagine the dragon's got to sound like yeah. He's like Meowth, right?
Yeah, boss. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there he is. There's Vanni Fucci. Go get him.
I'll be right behind ya.
Yeah. So that's Cacus. And then the next part of this canto features 5 Florentine thieves.
5 Florentine thieves.
4 inverted popes.
3 dog heads.
2 evil pockets. And a panther or a leopard. We're not sure. Thank you for going with me on that. It's getting to be the season over here, folks.
You're right.
Yeah. What is Christmas in hell? What happens?
Oh, everyone's just concerned about presents and when spending, and
it's commercialism just all the way down. All right.
Right. Yeah. So what are these 5 thieves?
Okay. Yeah. So what's their deal? So these 5 thieves are in the process of transforming and fusing into each other, changing to and from reptiles. Specifically, Dante mentions lizards. So we had a lot of snakes, and now we got lizards. Right. We had that dragon in the middle, but then right. So Dante describes in great detail how this 6-legged lizard, who turns out to be a thief named Chanfa, he jumps at one of the other thieves and fastens onto him, and they begin to fuse in this really long and frankly painful sounding description until they become what I imagine to be the middle picture in those Animorphs books that I didn't read as a kid, but I just remember the covers. Did you ever read those, Keenan?
No, too spooky. No, because some of them would be like, oh yeah, I'd like to be an eagle or something, right. But then some of those pictures are just horrifying. Someone stuck midway between girl and otter, right. Or whatever. Yeah.
That's the one you always look at. There's like 5 steps to the transformation, and you just like your eye goes immediately to the middle one because it's like in the center of the cover, and you're like, okay, so that's what you would look like for a while if you were caught between like a boy and a lizard, I guess.
Yeah, I'm seeing one that is an aardvark. That looks terrible. An anteater. This one can't be real. I'm going to text you this one.
Okay.
Of this. This can't be real, right?
Oh my God.
Like, okay, tell them what I sent you.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is a photoshopped one, but this is a
well, they're all photoshopped.
Well, yeah. No, Keenan. This was a documentary. No, but yeah, it's got the Animorphs title, and it's got a girl. She's sitting cross-legged with her arms folded. She's in like some kind of like yoga swimsuity thing.
Right.
And then she puts her hands on her hips, and then they go out, and she's spread, and it's like her head is elongating. into something like a cone head type thing.
Very painfully.
Very painfully. And then she is a starfish.
So a couple things. I looked it up. This is a real animal.
What?
One. So this is called the separation.
But Keenan, it's going from like the other ones go from left to right. Right? You know, they go from like, you know, like kid to animal, left to right. This one is going from left to right, but it starts out as the starfish. Are we to believe, having not read this story, that this starfish turns into a regular girl?
Yeah, I don't see why we have to leave the starfish out from having fun, turning into things as well. They're also animals.
There's no rule saying a starfish can't
right, exactly.
play basketball.
Can't morph. Yeah. So that's why. The other thing is I don't want to read this. You know, it's only 156 pages, but like, what advantage would turning into a starfish give you? Because even like when it's like, oh, I'm going to turn into a cockroach, like you can move around and get through things
and survive radiation, and you know.
Right. That's also a real one where a guy turns into a cockroach. But
wow.
But
I thought that was Kafka.
Yeah.
That's a little known thing called metamorphosis. The original Animorph.
Yeah. Any ideas of what would benefit you to turn into a starfish in any situation whatsoever?
I can think of like other, you know, like a monkey, a snake, a bird, a lion. Like all of these give you like an advantage.
Right.
I don't know.
Like being an otter would be fun.
Yeah, sure.
Being a starfish, I can't imagine is fun.
That seems like the least. If reincarnation is a thing, that seems like a punishment.
Right, absolutely.
But as we have pointed out, Keenan, it's going from left to right. I'm more convinced than ever now that this is a starfish becoming a girl, which is a major advantage.
Sorry. Oh, yeah. That's a big issue.
She can pick things
Except
up.
she has to, yeah. I mean, so if she were a starfish who got bisected, right, she can regrow.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an advantage, but that's a pretty, you know, passive advantage, I would say.
Yeah.
I don't know what heist they're going to do, but like, hey, yo, bad guy, cut off my arm, and that's going to help me.
I promised Johnny I'd go to the prom with him, but I also promised my professor I'd have the report on starfish in by Monday.
So you think that she could grow into two starfishes?
And then do the report and go to as a starfish. No, this isn't working.
As two different people. And then when she morphs back, she's two different starfish.
I guess. I don't know. I've never read an Animorphs book.
I've never read them. I'm assuming that they do morph back to people eventually, and then things go back to normal. Because otherwise, it is hell.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. This is specifically a hell concocted by Dante Alighieri. There we go. And we're back. Yeah.
All right. But so they're anamorphing into lizards and things, and combining, and yeah.
So that's what we got going on here. We got Cianfa, and this other thief was named Agnello. So I guess we got to decide on a ship name now. We're gonna call him Cianiello or Anfa or
Anna.
Anna. Okay, there you go. Yeah, go with the simple one, Lester. Come on.
Right.
Yeah. I love it. Okay, so another thing here. So Father Thomas Esposito, he also notes that the melding of these two thieves causes them to be both two and none. Not one, but none. Right. And of course, that made me think of like, I am no one, right? But the point I think he's trying to make is that in the mingling of these two souls, their individual features are stripped away and they lose their separate identities, right? So there is no longer there's no longer a Cianfa or an Agnello to go back to, right?
Right.
Yeah. Then we get another pair of sinners. This is Francesco and Buoso. Speaking of identities, Dante seems very keen to name them, although for us, it doesn't really make a difference. But we got Francesco starting out as a serpent and Buoso as a man, and then they swap.
They anamorph, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was seeing that Buoso might be a real person.
Oh, okay. I was wondering about this. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know about Francesco.
I mean, if one of them is real, then the other one's gonna
right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, maybe they're both real people.
Yeah, right.
Right. So we got Francesco serpent, Buoso man.
No. Buoso man. Yes.
That's right.
You are correct again. Yeah. So that is Canto 25. I also just want to point out that in the middle of this transformation, Dante breaks the fourth wall again to marvel at his own descriptive powers. And he compares himself to Ovid and to Lucan, those noble pagans we met in the first circle, right? In Limbo. And he's like, and then they were all changing, and his skin was getting scaly. Man, this is really good stuff. This is like when Lucan described Sebulus and Nicidius, or when Ovid told the story of Cadmus and Arethusa. This is just like them, but better. And I gotta love Dante for that, because that is a very Stephen King thing to do. Keenan, have you read Salem's Lot?
No, I've only read Misery and Dolores Claiborne, which are the Kathy Bates suite.
Yes.
Not Salem's Lot.
Love both of those, actually. Okay, in Salem's Lot, there is a part in there. And folks, by the way, like, the way I talk, this sounds like I hate Stephen King. I don't. He is one of my...
No, yeah. You pick him as your guide.
Yes,
yeah.
I pick him as my guide. He's one of my favorite authors, right?
Right.
I have his books in pride of place in my office, right? Top row of my bookshelf. His Dark Tower books are one of my all-time favorite series of books. I read them every year, right? I'm rereading them now, even though I should be reading Paradise Lost, just in case we cover that. I love Stephen King, but I love him in the way that some people love The Simpsons, in that there is so much Stephen King... Right? That it is inevitable that sometimes I will stumble upon a story or a page or a sentence, and I'll be like, Stevie, come on.
Worst episode ever.
And there's a part in Salem's Lot, Keenan, right? His famous vampire novel. Tagline is like, what if Dracula came to rural Maine, right? And there's a part, spoilers for anyone who hasn't read it, Dracula comes to Maine. Or someone very much like Dracula, right?
Or something very much like Dracula.
Place very much yeah. But yes, and near the end, right before the final showdown, one of our heroes, an older gentleman, a high school English teacher, is put out of commission. He is bedridden. He is giving the younger, more able heroes advice on how to kill this vampire. And after giving them this sage advice and sending them off with his blessing, they're outside his hospital room, and one character turns to the other and says, "Did he remind you of someone?" And this other character passes a shaking hand over his eyes and says, "Yes, Van Helsing." Authors, stop doing this. Blatty, don't have Captain Howdy reflect that he sometimes sounds like his older brother's Screwtape. Dante, what are you doing in this canto? And Milton got so much shit for basically attempting to write a Christian version of the Odyssey, and now Dante's doing it here in this canto. And I'm realizing now that everyone I named is one of the great authors of their time. So, am I wrong? Am I the crazy one?
No, it's the children who are wrong.
It's the children who are wrong. Yeah.
No, but yeah. So they're all like, your complaint is that they're all saying, "Hey, I'm within the canon, right? Like this is as interesting as the canon that I grew up.
This is just like Dracula, isn't it?" This is just like, hey, this is just like the Screwtape letters, isn't it? And now Dante's like, hey, this is just like the poet Ovid or Lucan.
Right.
So yeah, don't do that, everybody.
Not unless you want to end up like Dante and remembered forever.
Yeah, right. So yeah, okay. Maybe I should just back off and shut up, right? But I just, Keenan, I just get so livid when this happens, much like the comedian Louis Black. Yeah. Okay, so that is Canto 25. Now we move on to Canto 26. We start out still in Malebolge 7, Circle 8. So we leave Malebolge 7, and we come upon the 8th Malebolge, and Dante looks down into it, and he sees something eerily beautiful. He sees these little pinpoints of light moving to and fro, reminding Dante of fireflies. We come to find that these are human-sized flames, or I guess fires, like bonfires, human-sized because they engulf each of the sinners in this evil pocket, in this Malebolge. So it's like they're in hell, but they each get their own personal bonfire, right? And that made me think again how all the sinners in Dante's hell are so like self-contained, self-centered, right? Mm-hmm. Even the fire is individualized in this way. Right?
Oh, right. That's interesting.
And it made me think of those beautiful candle flames that fell like snow back up in the 7th circle, right? And again, that just seems so much more disturbing to me, right? You know, Dante would look down into this pit and he would see what he first perceives as something delicate and beautiful, like fireflies, right? Mm-hmm. But it's actually like individual sinners being roasted, right?
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, so speaking of referencing other people's works, this canto pretty much requires that you are familiar with Ulysses, not the modernist novel by James Joyce, which chronicles the adventures of Leopold Bloom. No, I'm talking about Ulysses, aka Odysseus, hero of Homer's Odyssey.
Can I go back to Joyce for a second?
Yeah, sure.
Did you hear this news that there was a book club that was reading Finnegan's Wake? Did you read this news?
I did not read this news or that book.
No one's read the book.
Okay.
So there was a book club in California. They took almost 30 years to read Finnegan's Wake.
What?
And they just finished. Yeah. So they were like, this is the most challenging book that potentially in English at all, right? So they would say that some weeks they would read 1 or 2 pages, and that was fine.
Huh.
So they went through, and it took them 28 years, and they just finished it. And so do you know what they decided to read next?
What?
Finnegan's Wake again from the beginning. So they're starting over again. Second verse, same as the first.
That's a Malabulja right there. It's like you're forced to read. It's on a desert island, and all you have is Finnegan's fucking Wake.
Yeah,
that reminds me of I'm part of a bunch of Lord of the Rings groups on Facebook, and I'm getting into the Silmarillion. I've read it a bunch of times.
Okay,
and I'm like every time I read it, I get like I understand it a little bit more. But there's this hilarious meme of this. I don't know who this is. I wish I could say historically. It's that meme of that. It's like it looks like a 17th century guy in a powdered wig, and he's looking down at a clutch of parchment or papers, and he just looks up at you, the viewer, like with this just confused face. and so someone put they said, reading the Silmarillion for the first time, and it has him looking down, and then he looks up, he's like, huh? And then it goes, but then it goes on. It's like reading the Silmarillion for the second time, and it's just the same picture. He's looking down, and then he looks up at you, he's like, huh? And imagine, I want to make a meme. It's like trying to understand the cantos and the Malabuljas and the circles in Dante's Inferno, and just looking down and then looking up, it's like, huh?
Yeah. The other people who cover this, right? Like you watch a lot of YouTubers and you read about, like no one else seems to be admitting how difficult it is to keep track of the.
They're all
lying. They're all lying,
yes.
right?
No. And there is if we did a modern retelling of Dante's Inferno, they would have their own little circle. All of these liars who pretend that this shit is easy.
Right.
I'm a professor. I can understand cantors and circles and Malabuljas.
It's really quite simple.
But yeah, so,
all right.
So I've read Ulysses. I read Ulysses for pleasure.
Pleasure. But yeah, we need to know Odysseus.
Yeah.
Which, I was shocked that Odysseus was down here.
Yeah.
Because you think of him as a hero, right?
But yeah, and folks, that's what I'm trying to say is this whole next canto hinges on you knowing this story.
Right.
Like you have to be familiar with this, right? So,
and the assumption is anyone reading Dante's Inferno in the 1300s would be familiar, because
with Homer's Odyssey, right?
Absolutely,
yeah.
Right.
And if you don't know the story, or if you're like me and it's been years, this canto is a bit of a slog.
We didn't read it in high school. For me, they just sort of told it to us.
Yes, yeah.
So we didn't read it.
We got kind of a summary of it, and like talking about like as a like. We would stand like narrative structure up against it and be like, see, this is what happened in the Odyssey, blah, blah, blah. Right. Right. But yeah, like folks, as many circles and subcircles and evil pockets there are, that's how many tabs and hyperlinks I had to open. We're gonna do an abridged version here, right? Okay, so Odysseus.
I didn't have to use any tabs to remember the Odyssey.
The only tab I used was the can of ice cold tab that I drank. As I zipped through this Odyssey,
right through it,
right? While doing my taxes with the other hand. Yeah. But yeah, so okay, really, really quickly, right? Odysseus returns home on a ship. It's the ship of Odysseus. This is after the Trojan War. On the way, he meets monsters. He has adventures, right? And in the end, he has to deal with the consequences of his long absence. And now he's in Dante's hell, sharing a bonfire with Diomedes.
Never heard of him. My English teacher didn't tell us about Diomedes.
Nope,
I don't know who that is.
This is the first time I'm hearing, right? But you can be sure that I did some research, right? It doesn't help that neither of these people are explicitly named in the text, right? You just got to piece it together from the story that they tell, right? And okay, just a quick rundown. Diomedes is from the Iliad, also by Homer. It centers on the Trojan War, specifically the consequences of Achilles' anger, right? So Diomedes isn't even a main character, right? He's in Dante's hell. He's in this Malebolgia for fraud with Odysseus, specifically for the sin of fraud. Odysseus because of the Trojan horse. Diomedes because I don't know.
I looked up, so I had to look up the movie Troy, which I'm sure is it's not a very good movie, but I'm sure it's certainly not faithful. But Diomedes ain't in there, so that's probably why I don't remember him. Well, there we go. Brad Pitt is Achilles,
right? Yeah.
Sean Bean is Odysseus. So
okay, right.
I found this interesting, right, because of the Trojan horse thing. So like we tend to remember that as a positive thing, right? Like when we're on the side of Odysseus, we're like, look at this great trick he played, right? On the Trojans, and isn't that great? But here, I don't know. I'm not sure why Dante takes the side of the Trojans and is like, oh, what a great fraud there is.
So I've heard other scholars talking about how Dante hates the Greeks.
But
no. See, and that's the same reaction that I had. I was like, everything here is Greek.
What about Hercules?
What about Virgil, his guy?
That's true, right? But Hercules is sweet. He's our favorite flavor. That's very interesting. Okay. So he sides with the Trojans, like the tragedy of the Trojans.
Right. I mean, that's what I'm hearing. I don't have anything else to back this up, but it's like people are passing this around that he's not a fan of the Greeks, so that's why Alexander the Great is in the boiling river of blood. That's why like all these punishments for Odysseus and Diomedes and whatnot. But at the same time, he's filled his entire hell landscape with centaurs and furies, and his guide is a famous Greek, and he goes to and he meets the noble, and he meets like Aristotle and Plato and all of these people, right? Like, so I'm a little bit confused about that.
Wow. Yeah. So, rethinking the Trojan War story, the Iliad, from the point of view of the Trojans, and being like, okay, Paris steals away Helen from the Greeks, and they have this great love, and then Paris's father, who's the king of Greece, like. The king of Troy, Paris' father, the king of Troy is like, oh no, we're gonna support my son, and that's gonna cause the downfall of this kingdom because I love it too much, my son. That's interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's interesting. Like, okay, so the Trojan horse is like this. When you're on the side of the Greeks, it's like, wow, okay, we cheated, right? And we went in and slaughtered everybody all based on this lie. We told them it's a present,
right? That
we loved them and that we were forgiving them, that it's peace, and we killed them, and hooray. Like, like when we tell the story of the American Revolution, we're like, oh, hey, we snuck off into the woods and shot the British.
We broke the rules of warfare.
We broke the rules of warfare. We ambushed them, and we totally weren't fair, and we lived in the swamp and jumped out, and that's great. And then like when you hear like the stories of a freedom fighter doing the same thing, you're like, well, these stupid these assholes,
cheating.
Right? They're cheating, right? When they do it to us, right?
Yeah.
So it just depends on what side you're on.
Every single time I have seen in media a reference to a Trojan horse, like it's like we're gonna get into the witch's castle, or we're gonna get we're gonna breach this wall, or something like that. It's always the heroes,
right,
doing the Trojan War thing,
right,
or the Trojan horse thing, and winning, or like hilariously losing. Right.
That's how they win in Independence Day.
What?
In Independence Day, Jeff Goldblum and Will Smith go up and they pretend that they're one of the aliens. Do you remember this?
No.
I remember this.
Okay.
I remember Independence Day a whole lot better than I remember my teacher telling me about the Iliad. Yeah, they steal an alien spaceship, and they go and pretend that they're a wounded alien spaceship, and then they take them back in, and then they upload a virus to the alien spaceship and blow it up.
Now that I think about it, that is always an action of the good guys.
Right.
It's like the little rascals get on each other's shoulders and they wear a long overcoat and they pretend to be an adult. Is there a story where it's the bad guys who do this, and we're oh, how terrible?
I think they do, but it's like the Act 1 sort of deceit sort of thing. Right? But yeah, the point of view of the nightclub owner who gets tricked by the little rascals in the trench coat, and then it gets shut down, and he can't afford his son's operation,
right?
Because the little rascals closed down his business.
Jesus, I don't remember that.
Yeah, they stopped the story right before we hear any of that stuff.
Oh my God. And Keenan, how come we've not had Dante and Virgil have to do one of these things in one of these, get on each other's shoulders and, pretend to be like a three-headed monster or something like that?
They don't have a third friend.
That's true.
That's the trouble.
That's what you need. You need a third
Just the
friend.
two of them. Right. They could have had Nessus, but they kept talking
shit
about him.
Well, I've never seen a three-headed centaur before. But I guess I'll let you through. Yeah. That's how they get into Dis, right? They put on little angel wings and they're, You're sent here by God. Yeah, it's like, yeah, we're devils. Yeah, of course. Bah.
Yeah.
Bad things. Bah.
Hey man, back there when you went ba 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 ba, I just want to let you know that's really offensive to me.
Yeah.
And that's how you see us. It's not how we see us.
Yeah, you're perpetuating a stereotype that's actually pretty harmful. And now we're gonna poke your butt.
Yeah. As long as we get that sweet rump, we forgive you.
Yeah. No, those guys are fun. I miss them. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, like I was saying, right? So we got Jesus, Ulysses, Odysseus, the same guy.
We're the same guy.
And
no
Diomedes.
Chain, no arc.
And Diomedes, right? And right. Neither of these guys, again, like I said, are mentioned by name in Dante's Inferno. You have to piece it together by the references they make. And you can't even go by the story they tell because like when Dante asks them how they came to be here in hell, they tell a story that is Dante's invention. So it's not even an account of like the Iliad or the Odyssey. It happens after. It tells how they, Odysseus and Diomedes, were sailing and they somehow managed to find the base of Mount Purgatory.
Right.
But before they could climb it, a whirlwind or a whirlpool swept them away to hell. Now, I know I was just ragging on Dante and Stephen King and William Peter Blatty, right, for inserting really obvious nods and winks to other works. And now I'm ragging on Dante for not giving enough information, right? So I am a hypocrite. I am writing this with my golden leaden cloak in the very same circle. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't quite get why he's being coy when all the other ones are like, "Hey, this is this person by name."
Right.
And
this is definitely yeah.
But I think it's interesting that like it feels like part of Odysseus's problem here is like thinking that okay, we can get out of hell. So we're talking about how like Dante and Virgil can kind of see like, hey, you need to learn your lesson. Maybe that's how you get out of hell potentially, or just like, hey, none of you are repentive, and like Odysseus's idea of getting out of hell is to go on another Odyssey. Right. So so that's not the problem. The problem is, I guess, his pride and his fraud. Well, that's his problem, right? His fraud because of the Trojan horse. So, like that, he doesn't recognize that he won the war through deceit.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So he's like, I'm just going to keep on. I'm Odysseus. I'm going to keep on Odysseusing, which is like Odysseying, right? I'm just going to keep sailing my ship until I can see purgatory, and this time I'll get it. Right. Yeah. This time I'll get to purgatory.
Exactly. Yeah. But okay. This raises kind of a question that I continually have throughout this thing. These are people who practice a different religion.
Yeah.
When they die and they're in hell or they're, or they sail to, Mount Purgatory, aren't they like, well, shit. I guess I was wrong this whole time.
Right. Yeah, I've been doing the wrong religion for a couple thousand years, and now there's a new one.
Yeah,
that is the right one, clearly, because here's the mountain of purgatory.
Right. Wouldn't you be like in denial for a little bit, right?
A little bit, yeah. You must be right.
Like, well, here I am down in Tartarus, right? And Virgil's got to be like, no, it's actually hell. No, this is Tartarus. I know this is Tartarus. Like Hades is here somewhere. I saw Cerberus, right? Yeah.
If you got up to heaven and at the pearly gates, it was everything you thought, but then, St. Peter greets you and he's half St. Peter and half a praying mantis, right? He's been anamorphed in between. you would have some trouble, reconciling that
right?
for a little while. Right? You'd be in denial for some time.
He's like, welcome to the pearly gates. I'm here. We're going to register you, but first we got to go over, all of your deeds. And I'm like,
right.
hang on.
Right, all that I understand. I've been well prepared for that part of it, but
I was not prepared, sir, for this.
I wouldn't that you are an animorph. Yeah. It's like, that's actually reading the right text. You weren't.
It's actually on page 5. If you'll give me a second and stop interrupting.
Right.
I've been mentioning to the guy upstairs that we got to put this on page 1 because everyone interrupts me.
But I don't know. I'd be like, well, we put out dozens of Animorph books, and you walked by them in the children's library every week, and you never thought of picking one up.
Yeah. Someone actually came up to you and said, read this.
This is the good news.
And you turned them away.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you thought the picture was kind of creepy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, what do you think now? As his little mandibles are clicking and he's like...
But it would take a little bit. Yes, I think that would take me some time to get my head around. But Odysseus has had a couple thousand years now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Couple thousand, yeah. But yeah, okay, so that's Canto 26.
All right.
It's just them retelling the story of how they almost got to purgatory. That's it.
They do the whole Odysseus and everything. Yeah. The whole Odyssey. Yeah, it's all covered.
And now we move on to Canto 27, right? Dante is still talking to these guys, right? They're he's almost done, right? They're saying their goodbyes, right? You know how it is, like at a party, you have to like ramp it up to a goodbye, right? You go to everyone, you give them a hug, you make a little callback to the conversation that you had, you wish them well, and then they say goodbye, and then God help you if you bump into someone who doesn't understand that that's what you're doing and thinks you want to talk more and holds you there with a new conversation and you're chatting with them, trying to steer the conversation back to goodbye. And, you look up and behind them, waiting patiently for their turn, is a new guy you never met. And he's going to introduce himself. And you remember that Taco Bell closes at 11 and it's 10:45. And that's all you wanted to do on the way home is just obliterate your diet that you've been so good with because social interaction has ruined you for the night.
Well, let's be honest. That's the only reason you went to the party to begin with.
Yes.
This is for the excuse that you would get to go to Taco Bell on the way home.
Yes, that is very true. Oh, you know me through and through. Yeah. Well, I can get drunk enough so my inhibitions are lowered so that I can get some Taco Bell. But yeah. So literally, this new guy butts into the conversation, and Ulysses and Diomedes, they just sort of wander off.
They just told the story. They don't do any magic tricks like any of the other people there.
No.
They just told the story of the Iliad. And the
Odyssey. They don't give any advice, right? They don't say, no, I've learned the error of my way. No, nobody does, right? Yeah.
No, but they don't say what's it like in Florence right now or anything. Yeah,
they don't care. And they just walk off, and now Dante's got to talk to this guy. This is Guido de Montefeltro, and early readers would have immediately recognized this guy. So Guido is one of the Ghibellines. Remember, that's the side of that is pro Holy Roman Emperor and anti-Pope, right? And also Dante's political rival, right? Although we have seen Dante can also be anti-Pope, right?
Yeah, depending on the Pope, right?
Yeah, depending on the Pope. It depends on what? On the Pope. Right? And just like at a party that you're trying to leave, this guy you haven't talked to all night pops up and wants to talk politics with you, right? He asks Dante how things are going up in Italy. And here, Dr. Doug Henry says that Dante obliges, telling him of the Italians' endless Game of Thrones, which that's another thing that people will talk endlessly to you about, about shows that they're binging, and they will try to press upon you. If you haven't, have you seen Game of Thrones? You should watch Game of Thrones. It's a really good show. I'm not going to spoil it. I'm not going to spoil anything for you, but you should watch. And a thing happens in season 2. I'm just going to watch it, right?
Yeah, I avoid movie spoilers, but TV, it's just like, I don't know when I'll ever catch up to that, so I don't avoid TV spoilers. It's fine. Let me know what happens.
There's something that happens in the 17th season of Game of Thrones, and I need you to watch it before the next party so that we can talk about it. Right? And then you go to the next party and you spend the entire time trying to avoid that person. You didn't watch fucking Game of Thrones.
Right, but then he puts your picture up in all the Taco Bells. Says, do not give this guy Taco Bell unless he tells you who kills what's his name.
Yeah. Stangrid Barmathian. Barabbas. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. So so Guido goes on to tell his story, and he says that while he was alive, his actions were not that of the lion, but of the fox, right? Which is like I guess like all over the world, foxes are kind of like tricksy characters. That fascinates me. That like because you see sometimes like colors and numbers and certain other things like they symbolize like the exact opposite, right? Like in some countries, a white cat is bad luck, or
really?
Yeah, or red means like good luck, but like apparently a fox like everywhere that I know of,
right?
And again, I'm ignorant listener, but
Yeah, I think they just have those faces, right? They just have those sly looking faces for whatever reason. All
interesting. Yeah. So he wasn't. His actions weren't that of a lion; they were that of a fox. And apparently, by this he means that while he was alive, everyone loved him and thought he was the epitome, the epitome of virtue and grace. Like a shining example of a good counselor and a good politician. But secretly, he was doing all these like shady deals and all these Machiavellian machinations, and he got away with it without anyone finding out.
Yeah,
right?
It's really impressive because Machiavelli hadn't been invented yet.
Exactly. Right?
Yeah. So.
But then at some point, right, he like while he's still alive, right, this guy, right, not Machiavelli, but Guido, right, he has this change of heart and he decides to turn over a new leaf to give up his life of debauchery and become a Franciscan friar. Right? He gave up all his fine clothes and his possessions, and he shaved his head in that little, like that kind of like donut thing that you see, like where the top is bald, but you got the little the bowl cut, on the sides, right? And everyone was amazed, right? Like they loved him even more now, right? Dr. Doug Henry remarks, imagine what we would think if one of the wealthiest, most powerful people in the world suddenly gave up all their possessions, right? And all their assets, and became a monk, right? Like what would people think? What would that even look like, right? I'm thinking like Jeff Bezos, I'm thinking Elon Musk, right? Like if Elon Musk gave everything away and became like a monk.
Right. Or, Jeff Bezos' ex-wife, Mackenzie Scott, right? So she got, hundreds of billions of dollars, right? Because she divorced Jeff Bezos and they were married when he built Amazon. And then she immediately started giving it away. Like she was giving billions and billions of dollars away. Yeah. And then, like, she's tried to do good with it, and then she gets criticism, right, for the way that she's giving out her money, right? Whereas Bezos and Musk, right, like they don't listen to any criticism, So Mackenzie Scott, gets all this criticism, and then what she did is she listened to it. she took some of the advice and it was like, oh yeah, it kind of makes sense, right? Like I have all this power, and like there's no heads or tails of like how I'm giving this money or who I'm giving this money to, and like people should know like where this money is coming from. Yeah. And so it's not perfect yet, but it's certainly better than not giving any of the money away to any of the charities, right?
I love how she gets more flack than the people
exactly.
who are not giving anything away. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, because she listens, because she could actually, and so I think a lot of her, as far as billionaires go, but she was instantly like, I'm not going to try to turn this money into my own company or whatever, like, and just hoard. Like I'm going to have a plan to give it away. So
yeah, there you go. See, right? So when end times come, those other guys will be down here in Inferno, and she'll be maybe
we'll see based on Guido's story.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. But yeah, so back to Guido. So as Guido is dying, a quote black cherubim appears and drags him to hell. And this is where Guido insists that this isn't fair. He had repented. Shouldn't he be forgiven, etc., etc.? But then he goes on to say that it wasn't his fault that Pope Boniface got him to conspire against an entire town in order to capture it, right? This was the Pope's fault for tempting him, right? Plus, the Pope also promised to absolve him of his sin. Of this very sin, right? So even down here in hell, Guido feels like he got a bad deal and is blaming everyone but himself, right? But as the cherubim who dragged him away states, it doesn't really work that way, right? You can't be pre-absolved for a sin that you know that you're going to commit, right? The cherubim says, one who does not repent cannot be absolved, nor can a man repent and will at the same time. The law of contradiction rules it out.
So he thought he was safe because he had these good deeds, but there was one pretty major sin that came after that or something? Or
Well, he thought he was safe because he had changed. He had these good deeds, but like in reality, it seems like he didn't change all that much, right? Like he went into the service of Pope Boniface, and Pope Boniface ended up being corrupt as well. So he just kind of like they started working together and conspiring against everybody.
All right, so be careful, Mackenzie Scott. Don't conspire with the Pope to turn your own town against itself, so it could be invaded by a different city-state.
Exactly, and that pre absolution means nothing.
Right. No matter how many billions you got.
Yep. Right. So that's Guido's story, and that's why he's down here. And again, he doesn't seem to understand what he did. Right. Or he doesn't seem that like he thinks this is unfair.
Yeah, he does not accept that this is just right. So he can't change.
Yeah.
So he changed up there, but can't change down here.
Right. Or like, and then we can say, like, did he really change? Right. Like, was he like, one of those hypocrites? He puts on a monk's robe and he shaves his head and he's good for a while. And then, we find out later that he's not as good as he seems. Right. So that's Guido. Right. And we remember, right. The Pope in a hole back down there. Was that Pope Boniface? No, that was Pope Nicholas. Right. Yeah. But he was saying that Pope Boniface would soon join him. He would like push him further down, right? Yeah. So now we got,
Yeah. By the time that Dante is reading this, Pope Boniface is dead, I believe.
Okay. Well, there we go.
Because this is a period piece.
Yes. Right. Okay. So let's actually talk a little bit about the fire imagery in these cantos, right? Dr. Doug Henry, he remarks, as I think we have also remarked on this show, that in Dante's Hell, fire has been relatively rare so far, right? It's certainly not a landscape of fire, right? And that got me thinking, it's like, no, it isn't, right? In fact, actually, much like the sinners down here, whenever we see fire, it appears to be rather self-contained, right? We got flaming tombs where each sinner is consigned to their own personal hot tub. We got the popes in a hole with the soles of their feet on fire. And now we got these individualized bonfires just walking around, right? And not that you think about it, I guess even like the candle flames falling like snow are sort of individual because they're not really like setting the sand on fire, just the people that they land on.
Right. And in Gustave Doré's illustrations, there's great like wonderful shadows that are possible, right? Because the fires are individual. If the whole thing was fire, you wouldn't have any of these really cool,
it'd be very bright
shadows, right?
So we got fire imagery creeping up in here, but not as much as you would think, right?
Yeah, I was thinking about that and like where hellfire sort of. We talked about that with Gehenna, which was a place where you would burn garbage and sometimes bodies, and and I was looking at there's another Jewish concept called Tophet, Tophet.
Oh, okay.
A Hebrew concept where they're borrowing from the Babylonian ideas of the fire sacrifices of children to Moloch.
Oh, okay. Our good buddy.
Yeah,
Moloch,
so they're seeing that and being like, well, that's something like a hell, right?
Right.
Like,
that is literal hell.
That is right. That's a literal hell that we saw on Earth, and so there's some of that. And then I was seeing like in Hellfire where we have it like the Lake of Fire, which is the idea from Revelation. That might be influenced from the Egyptian idea of the Lake of Fire, which was a place that in the Egyptian afterlife you would have to go and traverse.
Right. Okay.
So so it's interesting, right? So in Revelation, the last book of the Christian Bible, right? That now we're like going back potentially and being influenced by Egyptian religion.
Yeah, and it's also interesting that like in there, at least in the Egyptian story, it's part of the journey, right? It's like you're not gonna. It's not like prison. You're not going to end up there. It's like it's one of the landscapes that you have to like cross.
Right. Exactly.
Interesting. Huh. Yeah. But yeah, folks, I mean, and now we got Dante like adding to the mix, right? Like, and he's putting some of his own contrapassos in here, some fire and some brimstone and pitch and pitchforks and Halloween devils, but also fallen angels, right? Yeah. But yeah. Now, okay. In this case, in this Malebolgia, we got fire associated also with false counselors. So Dr. Doug Henry, he cites James 3, verses 5-6. Quote, "The tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things. How great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire, and the tongue is a fire, a world of unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members, staining the whole body, setting on fire the entire course of life, and set on fire by hell. With false boasts and manipulative speech, our tongue set the world ablaze." So Dr. Henry likens this to how rumors and false counsel can spread like quote unquote wildfire, and even references social media as like the latest iteration of this type of consuming fire. Right? Yeah. And so these false counselors are engulfed in their own personal tongues of fire, even as they burned others with the fire of their tongues. Right. Dr. Henry also points out that this is also a mockery of Acts 2, which says, quote, when tongues of fire rested on the disciples, filling them with the Holy Spirit, right? So their gift of fraudulent speech literally engulfs them now in quote unquote tongues of fire. Right?
Oh, wow. That's really interesting. Yeah.
Right?
So he's writing this about social media. This is sort of after the idea of like the meme, right? The original idea of the meme is like a gene. Like that's the analogy, right? So in Richard Dawkins,
we now say like it goes viral, right?
Yeah.
Like it spreads like a disease or something like
a
that.
disease, right?
Yeah.
But a meme is like the metaphor of a gene, but for ideas, right? That gets spread and it evolves and it changes. And then now we think about it as being out of control, right?
Yeah.
So like the fake news meme, which is something that like is a real thing that people, like scholars were arguing against, like, be careful with fake news. There were actual websites that look like real newspaper sites, and they were literally just fake news, right? And then that gets taken away, and then that means something else as it moves on, and the phrase fake news then becomes about like political spin, which isn't the original idea. And then Donald Trump is like, oh, I'm going to take that and say like CNN is fake news, which is now 2 steps removed away from the original idea, and now that's where it is now. So when we hear fake news, we think of mainstream media.
Right.
Yeah. So whenever anyone says like, "Oh, that's fake news," that it's 2 or 3 steps removed from the original idea because it's spreading and changing and becoming this out of control thing.
Yeah. Language, folks.
Yeah. It's fun.
It's awesome.
Except when it's not.
Except when it's not. Except when it burns us in the rump.
Not in a good way.
No. Tongues of fire on our right. Wait, Keenan, how have we not done flames on the side of my face?
Yeah, we haven't done that in our hell episodes.
Yeah, which is where we should be doing it. Not in the exercise. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, but that is all of my notes. That is, we're going to end with this canto. So that is canto 26, right?
27.
Oh, 27. 27. Yeah, it's 27. So we have what? Like 20, 29, 30.
We have 7 left?
3, 4. Yeah, we have 7 left. Oh, my God.
Oh, my God.
And then what are we going to do? We got to say goodbye to Dante and Virgil. Yeah. We'll carry on. We'll carry on.
They're going to go up to purgatory and without us. And
yeah. We're unfit for that journey. But yeah, that is all of my. All right. Well, that was great. Thanks, past Lester and Keenan. Well, folks, I have been Lester Ryan Clark, both in the past and in the present. You can summon me on all the socials as Lester Ryan Clark.
And I am immune to the bounds of time, and I've been Keenan Diaz, and you can invoke me on Instagram and Letterboxd at Howdy Keenan.
Yeah, find more of our shows and other really cool podcasts at True Story FM. Like us on Instagram and join our Facebook listener group, Dante's Ninth Circle Sushi and Karaoke Bar, or feel free to drop us a message at thedevilsdetails@gmail.com. Wouldst thou like to live deliciously? We're not even asking for your souls. Just give us a 5 pentagram rating on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen to our show. That and sharing the show by word of mouth or on social media helps our little podcast grow and find more cool people like you. All right, folks. Until next week, love and hisses. Mwah! And we'll be your holy guides on this. Oh, no, wait, I'm turning into an ostrich. Oh.
Oh, no, Lester, your face. Where is it? Come back up here. Don't be afraid.
It's all the way up here.
But oh, no, I'm turning into a marmoset, and I don't know what that is.
It's like, I'm turning into a 3-toed sloth. You have to announce it as it's happening.
Right, exactly. And I'm going to look up what a marmoset is to see what I've turned into. Oh, they're cute.
Yeah.
They're like lemurs or monkeys. It's some kind of lemur monkey thing.
I'm turning into a cloaca. No, wait, no. That's what is the animal that sounds like that?
Give me that cloaca.
No, it's a
that cloaca.
It's a wait. No, not a cloaca. A kawaka. There we go.
Oh, a quokka. They're great.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes,
those
they
are
are
wonderful.
Yeah. If you want to know what a transplant from Zootopia looks like in real life,
right?
That is a quokka, right?
Quokka.
Yeah, Quokka. Not a cloaca. I never said that. That is fake news. Yeah. Don't Google cloaca. That's a seventh circle.